This season of Syracuse basketball has been a roller coaster, to say the least, filled with the ups and downs that you might expect. The ups being the thumping against Lehigh, the nice overtime win against Richmond, and an even better road win against Notre Dame. But the lows are even worse. A loss to Colgate and Bryant, both at home, then a loss to St. John's at the Barclays Center in overtime. Tonight's 95-66 win over the Oakland Golden Grizzlies showed why Syracuse fans were buzzing coming into this season. Jesse Edwards and Joe Girard showed out and showed why these Cuse fans can trust these headsy veterans going forward because even bigger games near. Stick around because Orange Press Pass is starting right now. Welcome into another edition of Orange Press Pass, everybody. Anthony Vasquez, Andrew Selover, and Andy Klaff here to break down Syracuse's resounding 95-66 win over Oakland. A much-needed win for Syracuse. And guys, I know we have a lot of first thoughts, even though it was a blowout. Andrew, I'll start with you. Give me your first thoughts from today's win.
I'll give you my first thought, Anthony, and that's that Syracuse shot the heck out of the ball, but they were supposed to. 4 players for SU stepped on the court that were taller than the tallest player for Oakland, that being, of course, Munir Hima, John Bolajak, Jesse Edwards, and Benny Williams. So a 58% shooting from the field and 40% from 3. Not too surprising, but it is important to get the Orange offense rolling ahead of a big, old-fashioned Big East rivalry game against Georgetown this weekend.
And my first thought is that Syracuse finally got the outcome that was expected headed into the match. Syracuse fell to Colgate and Bryant earlier in the season, games that should have been handily wins. And today it finally got the crush that it needed and was expected as well.
So a nice sigh of relief for Syracuse fans. They have a little bit of trouble against mid-major squads. They get it done today, 95-66 over Oakland. But how did things go down in the JMA Dome? Well, let's just say Syracuse were heavy favorites coming into this one, and they showed it early. Not inside the paint, though, but Joe Girard, a nice right-handed shot.
Yeah, Joe Girard has to step up. Struggled lately. Another big game tonight.
Justin Taylor, 3 from long range. Book it. Syracuse with the lead. And why not Joe Girard tacking on another one from the right side?
This was some confidence from Joe Girard that Syracuse needed, something it's been lacking all season.
Team high 18 points for the guard, but how about that? The highlight of the night, Chris Bell posterizes his defender, and the drubbing continued. Girard, another 3, cash. Syracuse up by 10, and now to cap things off one more time, it's Judah Mintz, the nice Euro step layup. Syracuse up by a bunch in this one, and the drubbing continued going into the second half.
Yeah, Syracuse got the defense going at the end of that first half. You see another made 3 from Joe Girard. He was stroking that basketball all night long.
And by now, it's basically bench players getting minutes for Syracuse. Symir Torrance, the nice J with the right hand. Syracuse continues to roll in this one. And right now, it's Malik Brown putting on a dunk contest. Showing one right there. Another one right here. Getting the pass right there. Unselfish play for Syracuse. The name of the game in this one.
And this was a game that was needed for those bench players to get some meaningful minutes in and get some more experience before ACC contests.
So Syracuse rolls in this one, a 29-point win to improve to over 500. The Grizzlies not so golden. What stands out here, Andrew?
The 2 seniors, those 2 experienced players, Girard, Edwards stepping up.
And you can't forget about Trey Townsend getting 29 points on the other side.
All right, so Syracuse with a nice win today, but now we're joined with our reporter for today's game, and that is Trey Redfield. Trey, thank you so much for joining us. And I know the Orange were heavy favorites coming into this one, so I want to ask, did anything surprise you from today's game?
Anthony, the three-point defense was phenomenal tonight for Syracuse. Oakland was held just 5 of 25 from beyond the arc, shooting into this basket in the first half and the one over to my left in the second. And that goes miles because a couple of those three-pointers came with less than 5 minutes to go in the second half. That was when the walk-ons were into the game for the Orange. This is a lot of confidence for Syracuse to take into Georgetown this upcoming Saturday. Last Saturday, you took on a Notre Dame team who's the best beyond the arc in the ACC. And then you hold Oakland to just 20% from deep. That goes miles against Syracuse's biggest rival coming up in just a few days.
Trey, we saw multiple players run the point today for SU. Who, in your opinion, was the best ball handler for the Orange?
The best ball handler on this team, Andrew, is the guy that's been running the point all year. You know this, I know this. It's Judah Mintz. And the reason why the ball handling is so good is because he's just so dominant. He has so many moves left and right, and it leads to the facilitation, being solid as well. Jim Boeheim talked about how Joe Girard and Jesse Edwards cannot be the only guys scoring. Judah's facilitation and the ball handling is a big reason why we saw 10 different point scores from the Cuse. The Orange are not just looking for guys from deep to just hit the three ball and hope it goes in. They're looking for guys out in the wing. They're looking out for guys down low. And it's a big reason why Jesse Edwards is averaging a double-double right now, thanks to what Judah can do at the one.
Trey, there were a good amount of Syracuse players that came off the bench today and got some more time in, but which one do you think deserved maybe some more time against Georgetown coming up?
Annie, this may be a little bit of a surprise, but I think Malik Brown deserves more minutes. He came into the second half in this game against Oakland, and he put up double figures, and I think that goes a pretty long way, knowing what Brown can bring to the table. The freshman shows a lot of physicality on both sides of the ball, and he brings great size, too. If he wants to hang around for another year, I think it's really important for Boeheim to play him in this matchup on Saturday. If Brown can get it going off the bench, then he can be a big reason why Syracuse fans are saying it's 10:07 and Georgetown still sucks on Saturday at 1.
So Georgetown coming to the Dome, ACC play nearing as well. Thank you so much, Trey. Great work as usual. When we come back, we unpack more of this Syracuse drubbing over Oakland. We'll talk about Jesse Edwards and Joe Girard, plus so much more. Stick around because Orange Press Pass rolls on.
Stem is precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to send those old STEM theories flying past the neighbor's house into outer space. Dare to program something internet-breaking, record-breaking. Dare to blow their minds. Dare to learn the difference between sedimentary and metamorphic rock. Go find those rocks. Dare to keep daring. Dare to STEM. Check out She Can STEM to get started.
Welcome back to Orange Press Pass, everybody. We got the game back at the desk. Andy Klaff, Andrew Selover. I'm Anthony Vasquez, and we're here to pop the hood and dig deeper into Syracuse's drubbing over Oakland, 95-66, your final. And Annie, even though it was a mid-major win today, Syracuse has had its struggles. It doesn't seem like you're too impressed with today's win.
Yeah, I'm going to say that this game shouldn't matter for Syracuse basketball. I mean, you have a team that you should beat going into this team, a Horizon League team that's only beat one Division I team all season, and this should have been a win regardless.
It should have been a win regardless, Annie, but no matter what, every game right now for a struggling Orange program is important. I think this was a big game because SU starts off a 6 straight homestand, all easily winnable games, and if you're SU, you want to get back to the NCAA tournament. The way to do that isn't an ACC play trying to dig yourself out of a hole. It's winning the games that you have to win in non-conference play to set yourself up for when you play those tough ACC games to be prepared to drop a few and still stay in those tournament brackets.
And another way is to beef up your resume, of course, like you said, is to cover up for those losses. The Colgate and Bryant loss are going to be bad losses towards the end of the year. But now let's take another deeper look into the players. Jesse Edwards and Joe Girard. Andrew, I'll start with you. What did you see from them today?
I think this was what we expected, Annie, from Jesse Edwards and Joe Girard. Those are your two experienced players. In a team that brings in 7 freshmen, you have to have the experienced guys stepping up. And for Joe Girard, he didn't step up in 3 games. 4 points, 5 points, 0 points. St. John's, Bryant, and Illinois, that's unacceptable. Edwards has been better, but why not more shot attempts? Edwards didn't miss today, only shot the ball 9 times. He's only had double-digit shots twice this season, despite putting up double-digit points in nearly every single game. I think you got to get Jesse Edwards the ball even more inside.
I agree that this should be a guarantee that you have 2 seniors who have consistently started over the last 2 years, that they should be getting these points. Jesse Edwards does average nearly 15 points per game, but that's not happening from Girard. He looked promising to start the season, like you said, and then he went on a dry spout for a couple of games. Maybe having this game as his second double-digit game in a row is a sign of consistency for the rest of the season, and that's what the team needs.
So while both of those players are showing out on offense, what hasn't been going right for Syracuse is that interior defense. We're seeing them defend the 3 a lot more, learning their lesson after Colgate shot the lights out of the dome, 19 threes in that one. Annie, is that a trade-off you're comfortable with?
Well, so again, Trey Townsend with 29 points. He was only 1 point away from gaining his season high. That can't happen against an ACC team like Syracuse. In the paint, again, of course. But on the other side of things, for the exterior, like outside of the arc, Syracuse has been better, but it's only played 1 team that's been in the top 100 for 3-point shooting, and that was Notre Dame at 99th. So there's not really a great sign there either.
I think the big thing is don't overreact too much. Syracuse gives up a decent amount of paint points, but Jesse Edwards didn't play the whole game because of how dominant the Orange were on the scoreboard. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the interior defense because Edwards is your main guy in there. Now, Munir Hima, John Bol, Jacques have to step up their game. Where I'm concerned is still the 3-point line, playing a 2-3 zone. Syracuse doesn't give up a lot of threes tonight because Bryant just couldn't hit the shots. The Orange haven't played a top 75 3-point percentage team yet this season. When they do, I think SU's in trouble.
Someone who wasn't in trouble tonight, though, was Jesse Edwards. Perfect 9 for 9 from the field. That's why he's tonight's performer of the game. The big man in the middle showed out and showed why the Syracuse fans can trust him to not get in foul trouble at least. 18 big points, 9 of 9 shooting, and Andrew mentioned it earlier. He only played about half the game just because of where it was standing. There were a lot of other potential players of the game, rather. Joe Girard being one of them, 18 points as well. And how about Trey Townsend? 29 points for Oakland, but at the end of the day, it was Jesse Edwards. So when we'll come back on Orange Press Pass, we head to the wall and get a little festive. We'll talk about what we want for Christmas, plus so much more. Stick with us. OPP rolls on in just a few.
Jason, let's go see your room.
What do you think? We kept it a little spare, so you can decorate it how you like.
Dinner! Go?
Excellent. Yeah, I saw you guys out there. We're the family. Oh, I thought you were on my team.
Welcome back to Orange Press Pass, everybody. The festive part of our show. Annie Klaff, Andrew Selover, and Anthony Vasquez are back. We migrated to the wall, and guys, all we're missing is the snow right now, but I had to ask you, what do you want for Christmas, Annie?
This has taken me lots of thought on this question because while there's a lot of things I want for Christmas, I'm going to London next semester, and one thing that I want to see is Chelsea win a game, which hasn't really been happening lately, so that's what I want for Christmas.
Go Blues. I'm hoping for, along the soccer lines, I'm hoping for a Syracuse College Cup victory headed to the Final Four of the NCAA tournament. I'm hoping SU can bring home the natty.
So these guys are in the soccer mood right now. A lot of World Cup going on right now as well. So who's going to make those presents, though? Who's going to make those dreams happen? This is where we get to the fun part of our show. Guys, who is going to be this year's Santa Claus for Syracuse basketball? Who's going to bring the toys? Who's going to bring joy for these fans coming up this winter?
Anthony, I'm going to talk about Symir Torrance. That's a guy that knows his role. When we talk about Judah Mintz, he's still learning. As a point guard, he has to dish the basketball. We've seen too many tough takes to the basket and wild shot attempts. Meanwhile, Symir Torrance, he knows he's not too big of a scorer. He'll take the open bucket, but most of the time he's out there distributing. He's helping out his teammates. He's playing good fundamental basketball at the number one.
Andrew, you say he's still learning, but I'm going to go with Judah Mintz still. He leads and I'm going with the playmaking side of distributing as well. He leads the team with 29 assists. And again, that's as a freshman. There's so much potential for him to grow. And he started out the season both playmaking and getting those buckets. As of right now, it's kind of just on the playmaking side, but hopefully he gets his groove back in there for both ways.
So Symir Torrance and Judah Mintz are going to be dressing up as the big men in red. They're going to need a lot more cookies, though, to beef up themselves. But what comes with Christmas is always the Grinch. Who in the world, on the remaining schedule for Syracuse, I should say, that is going to come into your house in the middle of the night and steal these presents late in the season?
Well, with the month of December left, of course, especially, and going to go with Pittsburgh. They're 6-3, another ACC foe going up against Syracuse, and they've had over 30% success rate from beyond the arc in the last four of the last 5 games. So that's for Pittsburgh. It's another Syracuse. They really have to be able to have that test going up against a stronger team beyond the arc and have a better test in those defensive areas with the three-pointers.
See, I'm going to take it to the old Big East rivalry. We already talked about it. Georgetown comes to the Dome this weekend. The Orange better watch out. I don't care that Patrick Ewing is on upset alert. I don't care, is on job losing alert rather, the hot seat. I don't care that Georgetown's 4-5, that they went 0-19 in the Big East last year. It's still a rivalry game. That means it's going to be a close game. And SU went on the road against a terrible Georgetown team last year and lost 79-75. The Orange fans better show up, be loud, because SU is going to need all the help it can get on Saturday.
Two storied rivals meeting up once again in the Dome. The former Big East foes meeting up on Saturday coming up this weekend. And guys, it's time for story time. You mentioned the Georgetown game. A lot of stories that can come from that. Annie, I'll start with you. Are there any favorite memories that you have from Syracuse basketball?
It's got to be Syracuse in the NCAA tournament going up against West Virginia with that really close win, pushing Syracuse into the Sweet 16. And that's got to be the game that's the most memorable in my Syracuse career, as well as, you know, Syracuse, that team finished 18-10 overall, a very different record that we've been seeing in the last 2 years.
All right, Anthony, I've got one that Syracuse fans, they might not like. I'm going to take you back to last year where the Orange were hoping for an upset against Duke, who came to the JMA Wireless Dome. 32,000 fans came out to support SU. I was one of them. I was sitting front and center on the first row of the student section, camped out for that game. And what did Duke do? Well, they scored the first 14 points in Coach K's last trip to the JMA Dome. He proved who's the real best coach in college basketball as the Blue Devils rolled.
That win also, you know what that win also proved? It also proved that nobody had ice in their veins. And that leads us into our next segment. Who in the world on the Syracuse basketball team has ice in their veins? Who's going to carry this team come maybe March?
I'm not going to tell you who has ice in their veins right now. I'm going to tell you who needs to have ice in his veins, and that's Joe Girard. This guy's a leader for the team. We talked about it. He put up 0 points in the most recent poor performance, but now the last 2 games we've seen better shooting attempts from Joe Girard. Down the stretch, he's such a good shooter. You have to find open looks if you're Joe Girard III, and you have to be the guy to show up for your team when it means the most. We know Buddy Boeheim was that guy. Why not Joe Girard now in 2022?
You know, I'm not going to say I trust Joe Girard whatsoever for the rest of the season.
Proved it yet.
Too inconsistent for me, but what I'm going to go with is Jesse Edwards. I mean, him going 9 for 9 tonight is all that needs to be said. But again, that is with him in the paint. So you have to have that last second shot or that last point with the ice in their veins when he's in the paint, because I don't trust him going from half court or going outside the arc whatsoever either.
All right, guys, so now we're going to move on. When we come back now, on Orange Press Pass, we're going to get into some scores around the country. Andrew Selover is going to be really excited about one score in particular down in Georgia. So stick with us because Orange Press Pass is coming up in just a few. Orange Press Pass rolls on. We're going to talk about Syracuse's 95-66 win over Oakland. We're also going to mention some scores around the country. It's Super Tuesday right now in college basketball. And that means some nice electric scores. So let's take a look at them right now. We mentioned some Illinois right now beating number 2 Texas in overtime. Andrew, I'll start with you. What looks good on the scoreboard right now?
Well, I'll tell you one score that looks good in my eyes. The Yellow Jackets, they run the state of Georgia, baby. 79-77 victors over the Bulldogs tonight. Paint that state blue and gold. And you mentioned it, Illinois, a very impressive win in overtime, coming back in regulation to force overtime and then winning it by 7. That's an Illinois team that should get better and better and better as the season goes on. Plenty of transfers like Terrence Shannon and Matthew Meyer coming into that program under Coach Underwood. That team should be primed for a deep tournament run this year.
And I'm going down to Virginia as well because that's my home state. While you got the Georgia side, I got the Virginia side. That's a number 3 team in the nation with only a 5-point lead over JMU. That is a shocker. I'm proud of JMU for holding it in there, but UVA remains onto their undefeated record with that score.
How about Boston College, too? Falling to New Hampshire 74-71, we mentioned an important 6-game homestand for Syracuse that ends on December 31st against the Eagles of Boston College. Should be a very winnable home conference game, and you'll take all the wins you can get in the ACC, a very tough division this year.
And how about those Who's, Andrew Selover? Watching it earlier today, that Virginia defense is for real once again. That might get
Tony
Syracuse
Bennett
trouble.
has got the defense rolling again. That's a defense that can hold you under 40 points if you're not careful. Tony Bennett deserves to be in the top 25 again. He has a lot of experience, unlike Syracuse, on his team. And all starting 5 players average over 10 points per game for Coach Bennett and the Wahoos. Another impressive ACC team that you don't want to see later this season.
So 2 ACC teams winning, Georgia Tech and Virginia. Boston College, the embarrassing loss to New Hampshire from the mid-major. So let's take a look at what's going on in the ACC standings right now. Even though these teams have played limited conference games, there's something that stands out. That 0 next to Virginia's loss total. What do you think about them?
Virginia's a really good team. We just talked about it, and it's the experience for Coach Bennett that matters. That's why UVA won a national championship just a few years ago, because they had all the experience. That's what matters. You don't see the teams with all the one-and-dones winning those late tournament games. I'm interested to see about Duke as well. First year under head coach John Shire. Going to be interesting for the Blue Devils.
I'm going back all the way down to Boston College at the bottom of that table. 5-4, and you said that's a winnable game, but again, you never really know with this Syracuse team. There's been lots of winnable games in this season so far. so you never know, especially going up against a conference opponent.
And how about the 1-0 ACC start for the Orange, of course, Anthony? You'll take all the wins in the ACC. You'll most certainly take all the wins on the road in the ACC, especially by 1 point in South Bend. Not an easy place to get a victory, and SU got it done just a few days ago.
Hey, wins are wins, right?
Wins
Doesn't matter
are
if
wins.
it comes by 1 or 39.
Those are the types of wins that get you back into the NCAA tournament if you're Jim Boeheim.
And especially to cover up for those 2 losses to Colgate and Bryant. But let's take a look at Syracuse's upcoming schedule now. I mentioned earlier that the road does get tougher, and Luku strolls into the Dome. The Georgetown Hoyas, the storied Big East rivals. Andrew, how do you think that one will go?
Georgetown better be fighting for everything they have. As I mentioned earlier, Patrick Ewing, his job is not secure right now. They went 0-19 in the Big East last season. How's that possible? So Georgetown is going to throw everything it has at SU on Saturday. The Orange better show up and play.
And here's something you don't see on this screen right now, but Georgetown averages nearly 13 turnovers a game. That's just 2 more than SU. It's bound to be a messy game with not some clean play going on. Both teams foul a lot as well. Georgia Tech with 16 fouls per game and SU with 14. So it's going to be a messy game.
No suit jacket for Jim Boeheim to throw either, unfortunately.
And we mentioned earlier, Syracuse is having to, defend the 3, but also defend the paint. How do you think that'll play for Georgetown?
Georgetown has serious size as opposed to Oakland, like we saw tonight with Syracuse, and Jesse Edwards able to have his way down low. So you better bring in the bigs. Munir Hema might have to step up. Same with John Bolajak, especially if Edwards finds himself in foul trouble. So Syracuse in a rivalry game, you got to BYOG, bring your own guts, because things could get ugly.
I like the Dabo Sweeney reference. Syracuse will certainly have to bring its own guts coming up on Saturday, and that's where the next Orange Press Pass is going out. But guys, what final thoughts from today's Syracuse's win over Oakland?
I think my final thought has to come with the defense of Syracuse. We saw Oakland run a little bit of zone defense, and what we saw from SU offensively against the zone defense was the Orange tore it to shreds. So Jim Boeheim, I think you have a lesson to learn from this. Maybe a zone isn't the best defense to play in college basketball after all. I think the Orange have the athleticism to play man-to-man, and when SU faces some better shooting teams, well, I think we better see man-to-man, or else there might be a lot of points going up against SU.
My takeaway from today's match is that Syracuse needs to win its next 3 matchups, all out of conference, for me to have hope in this team. It may be on a winning streak of 2 at the moment, but 1 was way too close for comfort against Notre Dame, and this one was an expected win regardless. So for me, you just need to have those 3 next wins ready to go before you head into real ACC contests.
I'll take that a step further, Annie. I think the Orange need to win its next 6 games, because we talked about it. 2 relatively easy ACC contests to start, including Boston College, who we mentioned. So I think SU at home for 6 straight games, this is where you have to win basketball games if you want to make the tournament.
And that 6 games is ideal for any basketball team, any team in general. So they're going to have to pull it out. And again, BYOG.
So Syracuse needs to win its next 3 games, its next 6 games. Why not run the table, guys, right?
Why not?
That's what Syracuse is going to have to do, essentially. Quickly, guys, one more question to ask. What was most impressive tonight from Syracuse's win?
Jesse Edwards didn't miss a shot.
Joe Girard coming out, which was a surprise to me and most likely a surprise to everyone.
Well, the surprises were certainly out today. Syracuse, the 95-66 win over Oakland. That's all the time we have on OPP, folks. For Andy Klaff, Andrew Selover, I'm Anthony Vasquez. We'll see you on Saturday.